To put things simply, we just don't have enough silver to advance into the new digital technological era that we're headed into. We just don't have enough silver for it, and many people have came out and admitted it. Over the next 5-6 years is when I think we're really going to start to notice this, hence why I say triple digit silver is going to happen around the year 2026. I think by then, the inevitable will be exposed that silver is the most critical thing in the world and we just don't have enough of it. There's a lot more information and news coming out proving this, and I found an article that's talking about structural shifts that test the limits on global resources. Now, they're talking about a lot of different commodities and a lot of different stuff in here that really does just show, hey, we're way in over our head to make this promise of zero net emissions by the year 2040. It's very bold and very daring, because to make that promise that we're going to save the planet within 15 or so years is really pushing it and giving people false hope that might not happen. Now, we're not only just talking about, the green revolution or electric vehicles or 5G towers. We're talking about many different applications that uses silver, including investment demand, right? We just saw the US Mint sell 5 million ounces the first month of January this year. We need silver left, right, front, center, up, down, and sideways, but just not enough of it is being produced, and I don't think it's even possible to meet the demand. We're looking at demand reaching record levels last year, and I'm sure that that's not going to slow down anytime soon. So we are in a sticky situation, and all I know is I'm going to be stacking my silver. So on that note, let's talk silver. Now, if you've noticed, lately I don't ask you guys to subscribe to my channel anymore. I think it's kind of cringy when the first 2-3 minutes of someone's YouTube video is just begging their listeners to like the video and subscribe and share it and comment. I don't even mention any of that stuff anymore. If you want to subscribe, cool. If you don't, then don't. But I am kickstarting up my second channel again, and I rebranded it to something called Let's Talk Silver. It's going to be more of the stuff I wouldn't post on here, maybe more controversial content, maybe something where I just go on a rant, stuff like that, or just give some feedback, just stuff that I wouldn't normally post on my main channel, or maybe I would, but I am going to start posting more frequently. So this is just kind of another behind the scenes type of channel, and it's titled Let's Talk Silver, and it couldn't be more spot on. So if you want to check that channel out, then do so. If you don't, then don't. But anyways, so let's jump into this. So I really do like this type of article because I don't think people understand enough how important this situation is going to, intertwine with the price of silver. A lot of people just look at the dollar index, they look at CPI, they look at all the charts, but they have no idea how big of a factor this is going to be in something like triple digit silver. Yes, the dollar index, all that does have a huge play, but this also does, and I think even to a greater degree. So let's jump into it. Now, commodity rally intensifies on geopolitical strife. While commodities are measured by the Bloomberg Commodity Index, one notched their largest single quarter gain in the last 30 years. They did so in the back of one of the ugliest geopolitical events to unfold in Europe over the last 70 years. And we obviously know what this situation, Russia invasion of Ukraine, accelerated and intensified. And this is something that was just, it couldn't have been at a worse time, or I guess a better time for certain investments. But we're just still, I couldn't even say we're getting over the virus. We're still in the midst of it, and now this happens. I mean, we're just getting hit time after time. And if you guys don't remember, this all started. There's been things happening even before the virus. If you guys don't remember, it was the U.S.-China trade wars. And actually before that, it was the Saudi Arabian oil fields getting attacked, getting bombed. And then it was the U.S.-China trade negotiations, Iran tensions, and then that led into the virus. And then the virus happened, and now we're into this. So, and I remember silver really got interesting during the US China trade negotiations. Because I vividly remember making those videos on the Iran tensions and the Saudi Arabian oil fields. I remember that era, and I was like, man, things are really getting heated up. And then we went straight into COVID, and it was just a wrap. It was a wrap. I can't believe that things could get even worse, even uglier after that. I was going to say that we can only go up from here, but to say that I was wrong with that is just insane. And it's also interesting that for people that I guess invest into things that go against the grain, we almost have to hope that things get bad or get worse for our investments to do good, especially with something like gold. It's not really hoping that things will go bad. It's more of we're expecting it to, and we just know the inevitable. It's not like we're not rooting for it. We're just being prepared because we know that more than likely it's going to happen that way. So, while commodities measured by the Bloomberg Commodity notched their largest single quarter gain in over 30 years, right? We're talking about some very serious stuff happening. Structural shifts underway in oil and gas. Oil and the gas natural markets have been among the most rattled by the crisis. Sanctions and the condemnation of Russia's actions have compelled European countries are reliant on Russian natural gas to find alternatives. The U.S. has become a net explorer of the LNG in the last several years. However, U.S. exploration and production E&P companies have also had to absorb an onslaught of increased regulatory hurdles and outright governmental restrictions, as well as to cater to the demands of the shareholders. I mean, there's so much happening. I guess not only behind the scenes. There's just when you have something as big, it's like the war or whatever is the mascot. COVID's a mascot, but when you really look into it, there's all these other things that are trickling in and having, I would almost say, microeconomic factors that also influence the price. I mean, yes, the bigger things have the biggest pull, but when you add up all the little things as well, that can still have a big pull, and you're wondering why something could happen up here that didn't affect the price as greatly as you thought. And it's because there's all these other macroeconomic factors also at play. And then you want to incorporate price suppression in that whole range of things. It kind of makes sense. It only makes sense. And that's why when I covered that one article back in the day, probably about a month and a half ago, where the guy was talking about, and it was actually Road to Ruta, he was talking about silver being like $30,000 or something, or actually it was big, it was more than that. He was saying that if silver would ever get to that number, all these things would fall, right? I mean, the price suppression, all of that would fall. The corrupt banking system would fall. The gold to silver ratio would go back to its regular 16-1 or whatever, or actually lower than that. I'm just talking about all of those things because right now all of those things are happening, and that's why the price isn't as high as a lot of people would think. If you would strip away, let's say you would go 20 years in the future, and you didn't know what the price of silver was right now, but you were given all the information, you would think silver would be triple digits, right? But there's all these other factors as well. So then we're going into the world is seeing record high food prices. Countries dependent on Ukraine or Russian grains face potential food crisis. Greenflation, which is another interesting word, more now than ever in metals. This is a good part that I wanted to bring along into this video. The narrative around metals and their critical role in the global energy transition has firmly embedded itself within the investment community and governments around the globe at this point. The risk of greenflation, which we have talked about at a length in the past, is perhaps no longer risk so much as it is a reality. That's what I was kind of talking about. And it's only going to become more apparent over the next, I'd say, 5 years, right? Triple digit silver by the year 2026, I'm assuming. I mean, we're in 2022. You know, every automobile company by the year 2030 is going to be electric. We're talking about solar panels, which heavily uses silver. I feel like by that time, there will be enough electric vehicles produced out there, and I feel like digitally, technologically, this new era, like I mentioned in the intro, it's just going to expose it all. Right now, we're basically in the beginning, or even I could even argue it hasn't even started yet, but we're already experiencing silver scarcity. So, and to make up all that silver, it's not going to happen in a decade. It takes time, especially since most silver's thrown away. It's not like gold that's recycled. So, anyways, this is actually really interesting down here as well. So the risk of greenflation, which we have talked about, is a reality now. Price reactions across the battery, minerals, and clean energy metals complex, particularly in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, have clearly demonstrated this in the first quarter. The predominance, and actually most commodities have taken off. Silver's kind of lagging behind, but the predominance of Russia's role in the global nickel, cobalt, and aluminum trade have also underscored for many countries the importance of securing long-term access to these materials either domestically or else outside the highly geopolitically sensitive regions. Indeed, at the very end of March, the White House announced President Biden would be invoking the Defense Production Act to allow the U.S. government to provide further support by the way of funding subsidies on the domestic metals and mineral mining, processing, and recycling industries. Meanwhile, market sentiment toward gold continues to improve, and that's after the World Gold Council, or the WGC, reported persistent outflows through most of 2021. Gold bullion exchange traded products, or ETPs, have recorded strong inflows with holdings up 8% or up to 8% so far in 2022. Gold equities, too, continue to demonstrate strong operating leverage to higher gold prices as well as higher margins for the major miners. So that shows a lot, that explains a lot. And I think the main part about that is what we're doing about it, right? Like it said, Biden is furthering help, or going to further give their attention to Ukraine, and not only that, but with the trillions of dollars spent on the care packages, and the amount of money given out from stimulus that we don't have is only going to make things way worse. It's like a dog backed in a corner, but we have no other option. What are we going to do? Tell people, hey, we don't have that much stimulus to give out, that $1,700 paycheck. We actually can't give because we don't have enough money. No, they can't do that. And whether president or the candidate A, B, or C wanted to win that election, they had to throw out that $1 trillion stimulus word, which was the worst possible thing. But not only did that happen, then the person that got in office also was talking about trillions more in stimulus and then trillions more into the green revolution, which is even worse, not only for the dollar, but also for the amount of silver that's needed into the products, or to make the green revolution happen. It's just the perfect scenario for silver. It's like it's literally the perfect storm. Like all the dots are connecting, but the dots aren't done connecting yet. And I feel like by the year 2026, people will notice the dots not connected, and by 2030, the dots will start finally getting, making sense to people. I feel like first it's going to be silver stackers like you and I. Then it's going to be more the industrial sector and noticing. And then it's going to be, when the price starts to rise, everyday people trying to hop on board to also profit from it. People like Elon Musk, though, they need to be in on this now, or they are going to be SOL. Okay, especially Elon that owns SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City. Right now he's focusing on, buying Twitter, which he did, but he has much more important things at play than buying Twitter. So, anyways, what do you think about all this? I think I'm going to wrap this video up here. I have a lot of other stuff to work on, but I just thought this was interesting. I tried to highlight the main things about this article that I thought were important, but what do you think? What do you think about all this? When do you think triple digit silver is going to happen? And do you think that the greenflation, that this is going to be the main cause, or do you think it's going to be more of the dollar index, or depending upon the virus and where all that leads? I'm gonna wrap this video up here though. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to go check out Let's Talk Silver as well, because I'm gonna be posting a lot on there. This was Silver Slayer. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.